You are listening to Dove Valley Deep Divers with Erick Trickel
and Lance Sanderson.
Ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
On Overtime Media.
And it looks like we're live. We'll let this kind of hang out for a minute, make sure everything's good. Well, maybe not a minute, just a few seconds anyways. But mile high, hello everybody in Broncos country, and welcome into another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers live podcast. I'm your host, Lance Sanderson, and joining me as always is my good friend and colleague. He is your Denver Broncos insider and Mile High Huddle senior NFL draft analyst, the one and only Erick Trickel. Erick, what's going on, my man? How are we doing today?
Doing all right. I'm very tired. Had to clean up out of nowhere. Like my daughter Rosie, she just was sitting on the couch and then just threw up. So I had to clean that up too. Like, so just a lot going on. I'm very tired. Hoping she's not getting sick. I think she just got a little overheated and just like upset her stomach and she threw up a little bit. She's fine now, out there playing with my mom. But yeah, it's been an interesting, fun day. Excited to be on here. Take some time to talk about the Broncos and just interact with all of you guys, all you wonderful listeners out there, and just have a good time like we always do on this one, the not so serious the Valley Deep Divers.
You know what? That's what makes this show so fun, is the fact that you and I, like I said last night, like Ray Crockett, we give it to you straight with no chaser, and we're going to have fun doing this. Our conversations are never really serious. We give each other some back and forth banter and whatnot like that, but we still give you out some pretty decent takes, or at least on my end. For Eric, it's always good takes. But anyways, it's always fun to just get out here and have fun with you guys, take some of your guys' questions, and talk Broncos football. Now, tonight, guys, unfortunately, I do have a minor family on. Not going to really spare any of the big details, but there was bloodshed. So we've got it taken care of. Everything's fine for right now. Don't worry about us, but we're good to go. So anyways, but tonight, we're going to take kind of Joe Lunardi from ESPN. He does a really good thing with the NCAA March Madness tournament, where he says these are the last 4 teams that are in and the last 4 teams that are out of the March Madness tournament. And he does a really good job predicting this stuff. And I'm not saying we're going to do a good job as far as predicting this, but this is just our projection right now. Who are the last 4 guys to make the Broncos roster, and who are the first 4 guys that are not going to do so? But before we get into that, Nad Ludlow, unfortunately, not going to be able to make the show tonight with the $5 super chat, just showing some love. Nad, we appreciate you, man. Hopefully you catch this later as just a podcast, wherever you get a chance to do so, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, whatever that may be. Hopefully, just a shout out to you, man. We appreciate your support, and thank you for continuing to show love to all the Huddle Up pods. So,
this is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Eric, you sent me a 53-man roster projection. I don't remember exactly all of it a few weeks ago, but if you had to say that there was 4 guys that were the last 4 guys you called into the room, if you were, Vic Fangio saying, I need your iPad. We're going to talk about this really fast. We're going to see if you actually made the roster. Who would those 4 guys be?
So I actually really went back and forth on this. Like I'm getting ready to do a 53-man roster projection for milehighhuddle.com. And so I was really looking at it, going over how I have it and everything. And one of the guys that I have that I just didn't feel quite comfortable yet leaving him off, just because of the value he brings to special teams that I think based off of his college tape, is Tyree Cleveland. I don't think he pushes another receiver off, really. I think that with Deshaun Hamilton, Tim Patrick, those are guys that I think make it as well, looking at 6 receivers. But, I mean, okay, so Deontay Spencer gets pushed off, I guess, would be one person that does. But, yeah, I think that Tyree Cleveland, because what he can bring as a gunner, potential as a returner as well, I think that just boosts him up there. And I think that he offers up a little bit more on the offensive side of the ball than Deontay Spencer does, which is able to get him that spot over him. Another guy I have is for the backup tackle. I've heard nothing but positives about him. He's a guy who he's entering his second year. He went undrafted last year, and I didn't like him. I thought that he was very fair for him to go undrafted, but that's Quinn Bailey. I like him better inside, but everything I've gotten is that the Broncos really like him. They like the progress that he made last year, and he's going to be competing for a backup tackle spot, which one person that I spoke to made a comment about how that's that's why he thinks, just to make clear, he wasn't saying that was a reason. It's why he thinks it's part of the reason why they were fine not taking a tackle in the draft is because of the development they're getting from Quinn Bailey. Asang Bassi as another guy I have as one of those last guys in. I think just the versatility that he brings to the defensive side of the ball with his play in the secondary, able to play a deep safety role, able to play the nickel, able to play a boundary corner. I think all that is something that's there. And the last guy is going to the defensive line, and it's the guy they just signed in Christian Covington. I mean, with the guys that they have on the defensive line, they really like Joel Heath to be a defensive end for them. They brought him in. But I've watched the Christian Covington. I think he's a guy who kind of like Mike Purcell last year, where Vic Fangio told John Elway, when you turn on the tape on this guy, you're just going to like him. You're going to love him. And Christian Covington is a guy that I feel that's kind of the same thing. He's more of that 3-5 tech instead of that 0-1 tech like Mike Purcell is, just to add more depth, more ability to get after the quarterback. And he's a very solid run defender as well. Just a key guy to have on depth on that defensive line, especially if somebody ends up getting hurt. So those are the last 4 guys that I'm calling in saying, hey, you guys made the roster.
Yeah, I actually agree with you on one of them, Asang Bassi, as far as one of the last 4 guys that's coming in. In fact, he was the number 1 guy on my last 4 that got onto the roster, just because, as you said, the versatility. I'm so scared of the cornerback depth with this team. And yes, he can play inside, he can play outside, he can play that deep safety role. He can be that nickel safety if you need him to be, to play inside and hold his own in that stretch. But just the fact that the Broncos are going out, and as I have it on my handwritten 53-man roster in front of me, I have AJ Bouye, Michael Ojemudia, Bryce Callahan, Devontae Bosby, and Devontae Harris as far as the top 5 guys. Asang Bassi coming in there just because the versatility with him being able to play inside and take those snaps away if for chance that Bryce Callahan is not able to play, having that 6th guy, that guy that can go and play on the inside like that with Asang Bassi is a huge need for this team, because I think Devontae Harris and Devontae Bosby playing on the outside, they are better on the outside than playing on the inside. So that's my first guy on the roster. After that, I actually am going in a big different direction here. This is something that I mentioned to you last night, and a guy that you brought to my attention again as well, and Levante Bellamy being that 4th running back. And the reason why I say that is because this scheme with Pat Shurmur not using 2 tight ends, you don't need a 4th tight end on the roster. You've already got 3. You've got Noah Fant as your guy. You've got Nick Van Nett as a guy they went out and paid, and they just drafted Albert Okwuegbunam. So why would you need a 4th tight end? And even if he does play those fullback snaps, it's not that's not a position that Pat Shurmur really likes to use. He's down 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers, and there's no need to have that fourth tight end. Why not get another pass catching threat out of the backfield to help out with Drew Lock? The 3rd guy I have is Trey Marshall, and you are probably going to disagree with me on this one, but there is no deep safety outside of Justin Simmons on this roster. On the immediate guys that I wrote out when I projected my 53 guys, you have Kareem Jackson, who can play the deep safety role, but he's better being that nickel defensive back, that strong safety, playing in the box, playing around out in the slot and stuff like that. Then you have, you have Isaac Yiadom, who's making a transition to safety, and Duke Dawson, who is also that nickel defensive back. There's no deep threat. There's no deep safety coverage on this roster. And with Vic Fangio pressing the safeties to be those deep coverage guys, Trey Marshall is going to be the guy that makes the roster because of that. Now, as far as the offensive tackle depth goes, I don't think it's a guy that's on the roster right now. I'm actually kind of with Zach Kelberman here just a little bit, just because I think the Broncos are going to go out and they're going to go find a veteran offensive tackle, somebody like, I don't think it's going to be Jason Peters, but Kelvin Beachum is the guy that I think that they're going to go out and sign, and he's going to be the last guy on, which kicks Quinn Bailey and Jake Rogers off of the 53-man roster.
Yeah, but you got to look at 2 offensive tackles. I mean, with Juwan James's injury history, you got to have 2 backup tackles. You can't have just 1 backup swing tackle anymore. So I do agree that I think that they go get another veteran, but I think that Quinn Bailey still makes that roster over somebody else because, again, you have to have 4 tackles just because of the injury concerns with Juwan James. And as for Trey Marshall, I actually don't disagree. I think that he is a very good deep safety. Or let me rephrase that. I think he is the only deep safety on the roster. I don't think he's good. That's where I disagree. I don't think he's good, but yeah, he is definitely the only one who can bring that. Even if they do fully transition Isaac Yiadom to safety, he's not a deep safety guy. Duke Dawson's not a deep safety guy. I mean, only person who may be able to push him off is Douglas Coleman. So yeah, it definitely makes sense for him to make it, because they just don't have that number 3 safety who can be that true deep guy. Because I mean, Justin Simmons, he can do it, but it's not what he's best suited for. It's not what Kareem Jackson's best suited for. So that's that. And with Levante Bellamy, my thing is when I'm making my my 53-man roster projection for this, is I was just looking at it, trying to figure out running backs, and I only have 3 making it. And I think that I do have Levante Bellamy to make the practice squad, but it just came down to what Royce Freeman brings as a receiver. Being able to line up outside, I think, is just a little bit more reliable than the complete unknown of Levante Bellamy right now.
No, and that's a completely fair point. I really liked Royce Freeman outside, especially on the slant passes that they were throwing to him early in the season with Joe Flacco at quarterback. Specifically in the Jacksonville Jaguars game, he caught a couple of passes going out that way. I believe he caught another couple in the Indianapolis game lined up on the outside, so I totally agree with that. I just think that out of the backfield, Royce Freeman is not quite that way because he's not as twitchy. Levante Bellamy being a twitchier kind of a player fits in just a little bit better. I think Freeman, with the special teams versatility there, they're going to ask him to do that. Bellamy at least adds another pass-catching option out of the backfield, not lined up on the outside.
Well, so, Royce Freeman can do that as well. Royce Freeman was actually really good outside of the backfield as a pass catcher last year. But just going before we get to the next part of this, I want to get this. David Cromwell, thank you for the $5 donation, man. We appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
Is a long-term deal for Justin Simmons looking increasingly unlikely due to the likely drop in the cap? Right now, it's unsure if the cap is going to drop or not. There's a lot of speculation that it will, but no, it's not going to hurt any chances of a Justin Simmons deal. They still expected to get it done. Everybody that the Broncos have franchise tagged have gotten a long-term deal done, and it is still to be expected from Justin Simmons, and they have a long time to get it done still. So yeah. I don't think it's not going to change anything there.
No, July 15th, I believe, is the deadline. So they've still got a long ways to go on that. And deadline spur action, this goes back to Demaryius Thomas, even Von Miller as well. They waited until the last hour to make sure that they got a long-term deal done, but they still managed to get it done. So that's not a huge thing to me. Justin Simmons is going to be a Bronco for a long time. Now, before we get to any more of this, just a couple of quick matters of business, guys. Make sure you guys are following us on Twitter at Sanderson MHH, and for Eric at Erick Trickel. Notice the CK in Eric and the EL in Trickel. Also, make sure you guys are following at DVDD_pod. It's the easiest way to make sure you know what we are talking about on the podcast. We throw out some takes on there every now and again, but usually not that often. If you want to get our takes, make sure you're following us at least. If nothing else, follow at Mile High Huddle for instant updates, news, and analysis on your Denver Broncos. That is the mother site. That is where you're going to find everything. Anything regarding not only Dove Valley Deep Divers, but anything that's going up on the website, any written content from anybody, film breakdowns, stuff like that. Seriously, if you're not following Mile High Huddle, make sure you're doing so. Also, there was a question earlier about where can I find the merch store? And it was from Aiden Jaquez, I believe. HuddleUpPod.com. Go get your merch. Get yourself a hat. Get yourself a T-shirt. Anything. It doesn't matter. There's Huddle Up Pod stuff. There's Building the Broncos stuff. There's Dove Valley Deep Divers T-shirts, hats, mugs, the face mask, everything like that. If you want to be able to support the show, that's a really great way to do so. But the simple and easiest way is if you're not willing to go out and spend a little bit of money on some merch, stuff like that, make sure you do these 3 things. Subscribe, like, and share wherever you are at. If you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Twitter, subscribe to us. Like our content, smash that like button, and then if you really love what we're doing, share it out. Send it to all of your friends. Do whatever you can. It's the easiest way to make sure that you are supporting the show and also helping us grow.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
So, with that, now, there was another super chat that just came in. I'm going to grab this, and then we're going to get back to the second half of this conversation really fast on who are the first 4 guys out of making the 53-man roster. And David Kilgore coming in with a $5 donation. David, we appreciate you, man. Thank you for joining us tonight. Talking safety, do you guys see us getting a veteran free agent safety or even Logan Ryan at cornerback? I'm going to take the second half of this question first. Logan Ryan is, from what we are told or what is being reported out there, the New York Jets are very confident they're going to get Logan Ryan to sign a long-term deal. Also, the Miami Dolphins, I believe, are in the mix there as well. So I don't believe that's going to happen. If as far as a safety, I'm not even sure of any names that the Broncos might be even linked to, but It's kind of an interesting question there. But as far as a depth cornerback piece, we talked about this just a little bit last night. It's probably going to happen closer towards the training camp side of things after the battle shakeout. The Broncos are, even though we are not high on the cornerback depth, the Broncos are, and they want to see how that competition shakes out. So until that happens, don't look for them to go out and sign a cornerback guy. I'm not saying they won't, but just don't expect it.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at some of the free agent safeties, and there's definitely a few talented guys out there, but it's nobody that, it's guys that I just don't see as great fits for the scheme for the Broncos with Vic Fangio. But I mean, it's hard to say. There's definitely some guys out there, guys that you can take a low risk on potentially and see what you can get out of them, guys to bring in and be competition with Trey Marshall for that spot. But yeah, I think that with the potential of moving Isaac Yiadom to safety and Duke Dawson basically being a safety, that's what he really was last year. He was that number 3 nickel safety kind of guy. I think that they kind of like with cornerback, they want to see how those guys do, how they step up at safety before they go and look at that. That seems to be the pathway they're taking with all of this. Because right now, with everything going on, everything being virtual, it's hard for them to go that way. But just kind of want to see what happens first before they really go spend money on bringing a safety. Because one thing that teams hate doing is going and bringing in a veteran at a position to help boost the depth and then see a young guy take a big step forward. They absolutely hate seeing that happen because the whole point of it is to get younger. And then you go bring in that veteran and congratulations, you just wasted some money. And here's the thing with companies and everything, they don't like wasting money. So it all comes down to that. So I don't really see it. And yeah, with Logan Ryan, if they wanted to use him in a versatile role similar to Kareem Jackson, I could see it. But as a pure cornerback, he wasn't that good last year. He allowed over 1,000 yards receiving, like almost every major statistical category and advanced statistical category, except for interceptions. He was like bottom 5 in every single one for a cornerback. So that's just not something that I really like to see, and he was just a big weakness on that. But we'll see what happens if he ending up with the Jets. I know Denver did have interest in him, but that was a while ago, and what the word was that his price was a little bit too high.
Yeah. Again, it's really hard to tell right now, especially with everything being virtual, and you really don't know. There's no really information coming out of it until we really get to see guys throw some pads on and stuff like that. And that might be a couple months. We really don't even know with that, but still there's with the word coming out of Dove Valley, and especially with Vic Fangio and his past, making lesser name cornerbacks and making them stand out and getting high quality play out of those guys. You might as well just kind of sit back and enjoy the ride for a minute, because that's really what's going to happen. Like, we really don't know anything. And because of Vic Fangio, there's no need to go out and go do that. Even though we don't like the depth, there's no need for him to go. No need for John Elway to go out and get a guy, because Vic Fangio is going to do wonders with his cornerback room and the safeties as well. So now, to move this conversation forward just a little bit, again, guys, get your questions in quickly, because I got to run. Like I said, I got a minor family emergency going on. So get your questions in quick. Anything you guys want to get at us. But anyways, Eric, so because of your first 4 or the last 4 in, who are your first 4 out? So
going back to that offensive tackle position, and there was actually a question about keeping that 4th offensive tackle on the practice squad and everything. That's a fine idea, but I think that at that point you're looking for that. I think that you'd rather just keep them on the active roster anyways, not have to worry about it later. Because if Jawan James gets hurt, then you have to go and make the adjustments for them to be on that 53-man roster. Not to mention, by the way, I absolutely hate that rule about being able to call up 2 players off the practice squad. If you're going to do that to where you can have 55 active on game day, just make that the standard. Hey, you can now have 55-man rosters instead of 53 and calling 2 up. Like, I find that so stupid. Like, I get the reasoning for it, still stupid to me. But yeah, on that note is, if Jawan James gets hurt, you have to call him up, then you have to just keep him on the 53-man roster and all this stuff like that. And then you want those 2 positions to be able to be changed week by week based off of weaknesses. Like, if you're facing a team with strong tight ends, maybe you want to bring in an extra linebacker, or maybe you're starting to maybe fingers crossed here, Justin Simmons and Kareem Jackson are both hurt a little bit and banged up, and you fear they might get get injured worse if they play. Maybe you want to use one of those two spots or both those spots to be able to bring up safeties that you have on the practice squad or defensive backs. You want to be able to have the options with them. So I just don't like that. But anyways, back to the actual question with this is, with Quinn Bailey making it, I see Jake Rogers getting out. I think that he is limited to just right tackle, and we don't know with Quinn Bailey. He may be just limited to right tackle too. We just don't know yet. But Jake Rogers last year wasn't good. I had high hopes for him based off of what I saw in the preseason, and he did okay at the right tackle position, but he got moved over to left tackle and was just atrocious there. And then during the season, he was all right, but just not a guy that I see a lot of upside in. I think that there's more upside with Quinn Bailey. So I'm going to go with the younger guy here. Andrew Beck, he's another one. I really want to find a spot for him on my 53-man roster, but I just can't. He's a guy that, and I'll say this, is he's a guy that I think I'm going to regret leaving off, because he's a guy that the few times that Vic Fangio or that Pat Shurmur uses a fullback, it's going to be Andrew Beck. So I just can't figure out who I want to take off for him. That's something that I'm still looking at. And maybe by the time I actually type up my 53-man roster projection, that actually changes. But right now, Andrew Beck's off just because I don't see a need for a fourth tight end, even though he has the versatility to be a fullback. Another one is Austin Schlottman. He's a guy that I think he'll be one of the first guys they want to bring back on the practice squad. With looking at the interior offensive line, you have Lloyd Cushenberry, Patrick Morris, Graham Glasgow, and Nathaniel Muti. So I think right there is, with those guys, you're fine on the interior offensive line. Maybe Austin Schlottman's a guy, if one of them get banged up again, he's a guy you call up. But I don't think that you have to have 6 players for that. I think you can get by with 5 because of the versatility of multiple players there. Nathaniel Muti being able to play either side, Lloyd Cushenberry and Patrick Morris and Graham Glasgow being able to be a guard or a center. You can get off with that. And the last one I had here, and this was actually a late change. Originally I had Isaac Yiadom, and then I changed it to Devontae Harris. And the reason for this is simple. Is Isaac Yiadom, I think that with them wanting to move into safety and the fact that they invested a 3rd-round pick, I still think that they kind of want to hold on to that a little bit. They have a lot less invested in Devontae Harris. And not to mention, the biggest fact for why I changed this is Devontae Harris played bad enough last year to get benched for Isaac Yiadom. So that's why I finally made that switch, is for the longest time I had Devontae Harris over Isaac Yiadom. But I made that change for that simple reason, first and foremost. And so those are my 4 guys: Jake Rogers, Andrew Beck, Austin Schlottman, and Devontae Harris.
Oh, so I actually have 2 of those guys, Jake Rogers and Andrew Beck. Andrew Beck is actually the first guy that I have not making the roster. But the second guy I have is DeMarcus Walker, with the Christian Covington, McTelvin Agim coming in as well. DeMarcus Walker being strictly as a, that 5 technique, 5'7" guy that really is not going to be able to play inside. At least McTelvin Agim can play that 5 technique, but he can also slide inside in some sub packages. He's probably going to play more on the inside than he is going to play like that 0-1-3 technique than he is going to play at the 5 technique. But then also Christian Covington coming in. That signing right there tells me that DeMarcus Walker is literally on his way out the door, and there's not going to be a chance for him to come out and make it back into the practice squad. They're going to release him, and they are going to let him just walk off. That's how that's going to roll, in my opinion. Now, the third guy I have is Malik Reed. Actually, I thought that Malik Reed had a chance to make it back onto the roster again, but with the addition of Justin Sternad as that inside linebacker, you still have Justin Hollins as well, and he can play that edge. He can be that kind of the off-ball linebacker. He can play the edge, be as a pass rusher. Malik Reed just didn't fit, and I actually have Justin Hollins as my 4th outside linebacker behind Bradley Chubb, Von Miller, and Jeremiah Tauchu. So with my 4 inside linebackers, I have Alexander Johnson, Todd Davis, Josie Jewell, and Justin Sternad, with Hollins being that kind of pseudo in between there. Malik Reed just doesn't fit. He struggled, especially towards the later half of the season. He flashed early, but he didn't hold up well in the running game, couldn't set an edge, and just the pass rush presence that he had in the Chargers game, that Week 5 game, where he had I believe it was at least a sack, if not a sack and a half. We never saw that throughout the rest of the year, and then Jeremiah Tauchu took his place. So there's no spot for Malik Reed there. Now, I have Jake Rogers as my number 4 guy. Quinn Bailey I didn't even have making the roster just because I believe that the Broncos are going to go out and sign that veteran offensive tackle. But with Elijah Wilkinson, and I know that we disagree with the Broncos front office, but they are wanting to play him at the offensive tackle position, which is boldly stated by John Elway saying that Garrett Bowles and Elijah Wilkinson are going to compete for that left tackle spot. So regardless of what everybody wants to think, regardless of what we want to think, the Broncos think that he can play at the tackle position. So I have him as my 3rd offensive tackle on the roster just because he's already there. That veteran free agent is going to come in during training camp. Jake Rogers and Quinn Bailey are going to be kicked off.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Yeah, definitely some good players there. I definitely agree with DeMarcus Walker and all that. But guys, just so you know, we're not cutting it short because my daughter is sick. She threw up a little bit. She's feeling fine now. Like, she's not sick. She just got a little overheated. Something upset her tummy and she threw up. She's not sick. She's been fine since then. We got all cleaned up. That is not why we're cutting the podcast short whatsoever. It's not because of my daughter. It's something with Lance that if he wants to tell you guys, that's on him. But just to let you know, it's not because my daughter's sick. She's fine. Made sure she was fine. If she wasn't fine, I wouldn't be here.
I made sure everything was good, and I will share just a little bit. So we have a family gathering going on. We got some people over, and I'm down here doing this, and everyone was fine with that. But Samantha was cutting a watermelon and cut the pad of her finger off. So we are in the middle of taking care of that. So that is why I said we got to make sure we get this quick, because we've got her cleaned up and everything's fine, but still at the same time want to make sure that I'm up there with her and making sure everything's good. So that is the reason why we're going to cut this short a little bit tonight. Like I said, there was bloodshed.
So there is one question here too that I really want to address. Sorry, before we get to the super chats, but Vinny P, maybe room for DeMarcus Walker because Casey being able to play edge. So Casey can't play edge. He's not a stand-up edge player like Vaughn or Chubb is. He is a defensive lineman, just like DeMarcus Walker is. They're just defensive linemen. They do the same thing. So if Chubb or Vaughn gets injured, then you're looking at Jeremiah Tauchu, maybe Malik Reed if he makes it, Justin Hollins if he makes it, although they want to move him off ball more so than they did last year. That's where they originally had him, and they want to have him continue to learn how to play off ball linebacker. And then Derek Tuska, like those guys are your edges. Jarrell Casey, DeMarcus Walker, they're both on your defensive line. And looking at that, there's really no room for DeMarcus Walker on here, unless you, I mean, you can argue with him over like Christian Covington or something like that. But I think at this point, it's the time is done with DeMarcus Walker.
Yeah, I do want to say, though, the Tennessee Titans, and honestly, going back and watching some McTelvin and Najim as well, those guys, they may not be like lining up purely as an edge rusher, but they can rush from that 7 technique. They can play on the outside as well. That's a sub package kind of a thing where in a crazy scenario, you know what, to hell with it. We're going to line up Jarrell Casey as that 7 technique and see what he can do and bring a new look. But it's not going to be the primary with him. He's going to be that 3-5 technique. And even with McTelvin and Najim, you're going to see him as a 0-1-3 and maybe a 5 technique. And yes, he can play outside of that 6-7 technique as well. But he's going to be more on the inside, and so is Jarrell Casey. So with DeMarcus Walker, again, like I said, there's no versatility with him. He's not going to be able to line up inside. He's not going to be able to line up on the outside, despite him seeing some snaps with Vance Joseph in his rookie year out there. That was a different kind of a scenario. He dropped a lot of weight. He was really sick in training camp. He dropped a lot of weight, and they tried to use him in that way to get him on the outside, playing at that outside linebacker position, playing that 7 technique, and it didn't work. It was horrible. He didn't hold up in the running game, offered very little pass protection, but still, DeMarcus Walker, without offering a lot of versatility in where he can hold multiple roles and also be able to stand up in the running game, not only at the 7 technique, at the 5 or the 3, he's just not that kind of a player. So DeMarcus Walker is probably the guy that, like I said, I have him as my number 3 guy, that he just barely misses the cut. But with the signing of Christian Covington, the drafting of McTelvin Najim, there's no room for him anymore on this defensive line.
Yeah, and we got a couple super chats. We're going to grab them. David Kilgore comes in with the $5 donation. Thank you again, David. Do you guys see any trades then at any position before we start the season? Thanks, guys. Hope everything is okay with it, family. Everything's fine.
No, we're good.
It's just a flesh wound for Lance's girlfriend. So it's Monty Python there a little bit. Love awesome movie. Love Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Just but a scratch.
Get back here! I'll bite your bloody legs off. Anyways, as for seeing any trades, that's always an interesting question, but always one that's it's very hard to answer. Just because it's hard to predict. I mean, last year, if somebody told me that Denver was going to go and trade for Duke Dawson, and didn't they trade for somebody else too right before? Or was it just no? They picked up three guys on waivers.
Yeah,
I was thinking they made a trade there, but it's always hard to predict with that. I think that Denver ends up making a trade. I could see it being for a tackle. I could see it being for a safety. I could even see it be for an edge rusher as well. But it's hard to say hard to say with what team. But those are a few positions I would be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, just a quick question regarding the edge rusher there. Out of the guys that I've already said, and the one that you had said as well, you have Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, obviously, Jeremiah Tauchu, who's probably going to make the roster based on what he did last year and the fact that Broncos went out and re-signed him to be another depth rusher. So now you have Malik Reed, Derek Tuska, and Justin Hollins. Who do you have 5 guys, or is it just 4 at the outside linebacker, that edge rusher position?
So since you're going to make me spoil some of my 53-man roster projection, as it stands now, still building it, still looking at it over. But right now I have 5 edge rushers with Von Miller.
You don't have to name names if you don't want to.
I got to because there's something that needs to be explained a little bit. Von Miller, Derek Tuska, Bradley Chubb, Jeremiah Tauchu, Malik Reed. Those are the 5 I have. But I also have Justin Hollins making it. With every conversation I've had is that it seems to be that they really want to move him more to off ball. So I have him considered as an off ball linebacker in my projection right now. But I have gone back and forth of taking both Justin Hollins and Malik Reed off, and at least one of them, and subbing them out for somebody else. Still going back and forth on that. So that might be a change to come up. But yeah, right now I guess you can say 6 edges because of Justin Hollins' versatility, but I have him as an off ball. So it's just 5.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have 4 inside linebackers with, like I said, Alexander Johnson, Todd Davis, Josie Jewell, and Justin Strnad making the roster, and then 4 outside linebackers in Miller, Chubb, Tauchu, and Hollins. I don't even have Tuska or Malik Reed making the roster there. So I like.
You're going to be wrong on Tuska.
I imagine so, and that's fine. I just to make an interesting kind of a conversation, I kept 6 wide receivers, I kept 6 cornerbacks, and I kept 5 safeties. So there's, I kept 5 safeties. I have
going with the 11 defensive backs.
Yep, 11.
I like it. It's spicy.
But I have Kareem Jackson, I have Justin Simmons, Isaac Yiadom, Duke Dawson, and Trey Marshall. Like I said, Trey Marshall is one of my last 4 on the roster, just because the versatility, not the versatility, but the ability to play that deep safety position. And there's none of the other 4 guys other than there's none of the other 5 guys other than Justin Simmons that I trust to be able to play that deep safety role. Duke Dawson, Isaac Yiadom, they can rotate over and play that cornerback. And they can play inside or outside, particularly on the outside to help with the outside cornerback coverage there. But with Trey Marshall being that deep safety, I think that's actually the position the Broncos should go. Outside of that, I also have Netani Moody making the roster, but I only have 4 offensive guards. I do have 2 centers, Cushenberry and Morris, and the 4 offensive tackles, Garrett Bowles, Juwan James, Elijah Wilkinson, and that veteran backup. So I have 10 offensive linemen, I have 11 defensive backs, 6 wide receivers, and then 4 everywhere else. It's going to be a little bit thin at the linebacker position, but just the best 53, in my opinion, doesn't include Derek Tuska. It doesn't include Malik Reed. Getting that six defensive back, that 6 cornerback to help with the depth there, and also Deshaun Hamilton. I think that Deshaun Hamilton still has a role on this roster, as good of a route runner as he is. Yes, Tyree Cleveland with the special teams impact there, but he's so raw as a receiver. You're going to keep that guy to be a special teams player, a kick returner specifically, I believe, kick off returner, not a punt returner. I think that KJ Hamler takes that role. But with Tyree Cleveland, you got to have some gunners, and Tyree Cleveland's going to be one of the better of the bunch.
So Terry Randall comes in with a $5 donation out of Canada. Eric, any sleeper O-line still out there to push the depth chart? Off the top of my head, I can't think of any. I'm sure there are, but I'm not familiar with who's still available or anything like that. So hard for me to answer with that. Hashtag Erick Ty Rocks. I don't know. I don't agree with this one. I think I really hate this tie. I don't think it's that nice. Hashtag state of being. Yes, definitely. Hashtag state of being. You are the obvious proof here that Broncos country is a state of being and not a geographical location. And we appreciate you, Terry, with your consistency with coming and joining with the not just Dove Valley Deep Divers, but every single podcast from the Huddle Up Podcast Network.
Yeah, he is one of the true Mount Rushmore members up there. And again, hashtag state of being. Let's see here.
And then Manny Wise comes in with a $10 donation. Doesn't say anything, but thank you, Manny. We appreciate that. And really like the thing behind you in your profile picture there.
Yeah, I love the flag.
Obviously, it's dope, Broncos.
Dude. That is way dope. All right.
Real quick, though, I wanted to say this earlier, but I wanted to get those super chats in there, is you only have four off-ball linebackers. Hey, that's fine as long as it's not 8. I'm still baffled that Denver's
right.
8.
Yeah,
that still boggles my mind.
Yeah, last year's depth chart, last year's roster keeping 8 off-ball linebackers with I can't even remember all of them. It was just like, why? What are you doing? I get that you want to have that coverage linebacker, especially in Vic Fangio's scheme, but still, man, none of those guys that they were keeping on the roster offered up any coverage ability. None of them at all. Maybe Joe Jones, but he was still hurt. Like, come on.
I don't get the love for Joe Jones, man. I really don't. Like, I get a couple years ago he showed potential there, but he's never lived up to it. So, like, hey, he's a solid special teamer, but Josie Jewell's better than him. I don't think he makes this roster. But Joseph, we appreciate it. We do appreciate you all guys looking out for us and making sure everything's okay and everything. And just want to make that clear. We do appreciate you guys, and trust us. If something was bad enough to where we couldn't be here, we wouldn't be on here. It happens. Well, I don't want to say it happens all the time. I mean, it's always you're going off and traveling and everything. But yeah, if something ever were to happen to be an illness or something like that, we wouldn't be on here. We know better than that. We love doing this. Don't get us wrong, but I mean, I love my daughter and my wife a little bit more, just a little bit.
Yeah, only a little bit. Yeah, and that's the thing. Every time I go out traveling, every time I miss a podcast, it's because I go home to see my family. I live 3.5 hours away from where my folks are, and I have 2 beautiful grandchildren to them that they love and enjoy to see. So I try to go see those guys as often as possible. And unfortunately, with us having a Saturday show, that means that sometimes I have to miss a Saturday show. But
yeah. Well, never mind. I won't get into the whole Saturday thing. Not yet anyways, because we're still a little bit down the road from that.
Yeah. Yes, we are.
But anyways, Big E Bronco, I'm assuming you meant why. Why do you think Isaac Yiadom will be a safety? It's just the conversation I've heard, and I think his skill set is a little bit better suited for a safety. He is in his way is similar to Duke Dawson. Not the most fluid of guys. His change of direction isn't the greatest, but he's just a guy with solid range to be a safety who can come up. And one of the things that really I think a lot of fans don't give Isaac Yiadom enough credit for is how good he was against the run. He was actually really good last year when defending the run. And there were multiple times too where he gave up the catch. Yeah. And it was a big play, but he had perfect coverage on it. It was just a better throw. Sometimes a perfect throw can beat good coverage. And that happened to him a couple times, not every time. By no means was it every time. And he perfectly was deserving of getting benched because his playing coverage wasn't as good. But yeah, I think that he just offers up enough of the traits that you want to be a safety. But it's mainly led by the fact that that's just what I've heard, is that they kind of want to transition to that safety role for it.
Yeah. I agree with that. I just the struggles that he has on the outside. I totally agree with that. That Raiders game week 1 where Darren Waller absolutely torched him on the outside through at least the first half. He did come back in the second half. I know where you're going with this. Yes, he did come back in the second half, and he had a very good second half. Darren Waller flat abused him.
Wow.
Absolutely abused him in the first half. And it was
okay.
it was a lot of the scheme too. He was playing off the ball and letting Darren Waller get a free release off the line of scrimmage. When he's physical and playing in man coverage, he's actually a really good cornerback. When he's playing in off zone, he's not a good cornerback. And it's kind of a confusing thing to me, but I agree with this. Get him off, let him see, get him off the ball, get him back deep, let him see what happens in front of him. He is athletic, good click and close, and can drive on the football. and move forward. This is a big thing that I had with Bryce Hall, the University of Virginia cornerback in the draft this year, was get him back, get him off the ball, and let him drive forward. He's a better playmaker moving forward than he is laterally and moving backwards. That's why I wanted him as playing that safety position. And this is a big thing with Isaac Yiadom, and I can see this.
So with Isaac Yiadom, he did improve in that second half against Oakland. But one of the big plays that Darren Waller had on him, I think it was Darren Waller. It might have been the wide receiver, Williams. Might have been him, but it was on the sideline, and Isaac Yiadom's coverage could have been a little bit better, but it was almost perfect, and he was just beat by a throw. On one of the ones with Darren Waller, it definitely was the fact that he was playing off. Darren Waller just faked the outside and then cut inside and had the ball there immediately, and then just made a big play. And another one was the safety was out of position. So not all on Isaac Yiadom, but again, not defending him because he definitely had plenty of other boneheaded plays. But it's when you sit there and say that Darren Waller completely thrashed him, that's a little iffy because it wasn't just Isaac Yiadom that contributed to that. But
no,
I'll let it slide. I'll let it slide.
Well, you're right.
So I already drew a mustache on my laptop for your face, just so you know. It doesn't move, so it's a little weird at times. But anyways, Terry Randall comes in with another $2 donation saying, "Stumped on a hashtag for Lance." I'd make a joke here, but I don't think Lance would appreciate it. Shoot it! I dare you. Hashtag Chewy.
Hashtag Chewy. Okay, that's all right.
A very hairy dude.
Yes, I am. I am a very hairy man, and I will embrace that. I mean, you see my face hair, but you don't actually see like my arms are super hairy, my legs are super hairy. I'm just a hairy dude, and that's fine. However, baby update. Lance should name his son Bawana Beast. Okay. All right, John, I appreciate that. I was just about to say that. Baby update. If you need a hashtag for Lance, hashtag Lance's diaper fund. Please help me out. I need all of the diapers that I can get.
Diapers are expensive, man.
Yes, they are. We are finding that out. Every time we get paid, we're going out to go get diapers. Another update here. Our due date was bumped up July 29th. Kaven Elliott Sanderson will be born July 29th. So just so you guys are aware.
After my daughter.
Hey, look at that.
Anyways, Gary Palmer comes in with a $2 donation. Love when you guys are on. We appreciate the $2 donation, and we love that you love when we are on. We love being on too.
Yeah, being on with you guys and enjoying just the conversation. And again, here we go with we're not talking football. We're just having fun. This is what we do. And I love the fact that you guys are all coming here to join us, and the fact that there's a lot of people that say, you know what, this is the best podcast because you don't shoot the bull, you don't play the politics and everything like that. You guys just have fun when you do this. And to the fact that you come on and help us out, help our cause, that means a lot to us. There is another on here. I was going to go.
Angela comes in with a Canadian $14 donation. Thanks for all your insights. Hashtag state of being and go Canada. And you are proof that, once again, and I'm going to say this just because the thing is that Broncos country you are proof that tongue tied. You are proof that Broncos country is a state of being instead of a geographical location. And Juan, I say that because I just can't talk.
State of being.
I don't pronunciate words very well, and being feels awkward when I say it. So
there it is.
Often comes out again.
Terry coming back in, man. I love you, Terry. You're the best, dude. $2 hashtag Lance's diaper fund. You know what? You got Nick's beer fund going. I see you. I see you. Hashtag Nick's beer fund. Every time you donate to Nick and those guys. Hashtag Nick's beer fund.
So. Welcome, Malcolm. Hello from Tie-Dye Town, Alaska. that he's from Homer, which is Tie-Dye Central. I haven't been at Homer in quite a few years, so I don't know if it's as bad as it used to be. But man, it used to be really bad there with the hippies that were living there. I still deal with them a little bit because they have to come into my courthouse, but yeah, I don't know if it's still the same. And my wife and I are actually talking about going down there at some point this summer, depending on how the situation in the world goes. So definitely something with that. And there was a question here that I really wanted to get to.
I got to scroll back up till we can actually get to some questions here. I'm going to have to jump out of here soon.
Here it is. Okay, Elway's contract ends in 2022. Do we cut him loose or extend him? I say we need a shakeup. Do what the Bills did and let Vic Fangio like Elway. I've actually gone back and forth on this. I actually did a video that never got published because, of course, I did the video and the Broncos end up winning like the next 2 games of how John Elway should have been fired last year just because of the mistakes that he's made. Just most of the mistakes that he's made are things that he could have easily just avoided, but he didn't, either out of arrogance or whatever. We don't know, but he just has made a lot of mistakes. But I think at this point is we got to see what happens now. I think that by 2022, depending on where the Broncos are in their rebuild, I can see them extending him. If things don't go as they planned, then you definitely want to consider letting him go and shaking things up because there's something there that we just can't get back to being a competitive team. So it's definitely something that we have to keep an eye on with how the Broncos perform over the next few seasons between now and then.
Well, a big part of that is just the instability in quarterback play. And yes, John Elway did play a hand in that by not going. Obviously, the Paxton Lynch flop, that hurts if you miss on a quarterback in the draft, especially if you trade up for the guy. That hurts a lot. But even after that, going out and getting Mark Sanchez, going out and getting Case Keenum, going out and getting Joe Flacco. And now we're going to see how this turns around because I believe Drew Lock actually has the goods. I think that he can be a good quarterback. But still, the lack of the effective quarterback play over the last 3 or 4 seasons, even going back to Super Bowl 50, that defense carried the team. They literally carried the team to the Super Bowl victory. And Peyton Manning was atrocious. Let's not mince words. Brock Osweiler came in and carried and helped win some games and whatnot. But still, the defense carried the team. He had lackluster quarterback play the entire time. Over the last 3 seasons specifically with Trevor Siemian, Case Keenum, Joe Flacco, and Brandon Allen, all of that stuff, if you don't have stable quarterback play, and yes, this comes on to the GM to find that stable quarterback play, but still, if you don't have stable quarterback play, any good moves you make, especially for John Elway over the last couple of seasons, we're seeing really good draft classes coming out of him again. And yes, the 2017 class could have been very explosive had some people stayed healthy and not gotten caught with weed. But they're like, yes, there are some questions that need to be asked, but let's see how he does with stable quarterback play, back-to-back to now back quality draft classes. Let's see how this team shakes up. And maybe in 2022, you see John Elway extended again.
And Angela comes in with another one, hashtag Lance Diaper Fun, hashtag Erick's Tie Fun, go Broncos. Angela, we appreciate it. Definitely, you are just such an awesome supporter of the show. Unfortunately, I can't say if you're on the other ones. I think you are. I just can't remember. But we appreciate you, and I know that everyone else appreciates you as well.
I think I figured out how to say her last name, Halafka. Finally, I think I figured out Halafka. I hope that's right. If not, I'm sorry. But anyways, no, Angela, we appreciate you.
Many-wise, Prescott was number 2 for Elway. I mean, not counting the top guys, as Lynch was definitely the guy from the start, and Prescott was after him. If they didn't get Lynch, they would have gone after Prescott. And who knows how that would have turned out, because Prescott has definitely, benefited from that line and running game that the Dallas Cowboys have had.
All right, guys. Unfortunately, I have to call her here tonight. I've got to get back upstairs. We're at 47 minutes now. I have to call her, shut her down. I do apologize for that. I've got some stuff that I've got to get taken care of. As Bawana says, he's our moderator. He is the mayor of the YouTube community. Everyone give a like for our hosts. Remember to speak with them on their articles at milehighhuddle.com and on Twitter. And the easiest way to do so is to follow us at Sanderson MHH, and for Erick at Erick Trickel. You guys can also follow the show again at DVDD_pod. Follow at Mile High Huddle for instant news and analysis, breaking news, updates, film articles, anything like that regarding your Denver Broncos. Also, head on over, huddleuppod.com. Get your swag on, get your merch, get your hat, get your T-shirt, do whatever you got to do. Help support the cause. That's the one of the easiest ways. And again, if nothing else, subscribe, like, and share. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Like the video. Share it out to all your friends. The easiest way to make sure that you are doing everything you can to support not only Dove Valley Deep Divers, but building your Broncos and the Huddle Up podcast. Now, with that, Eric, any last words?
Yeah. Biggie, that's definitely a possibility that John Elway decides to walk away. The contracts I can see the reasoning there with the contracts and everything. I think that also one reason we can sit there and say that they structured the contracts the way they did is if everything blows up in their face, they want to be able to get out of them pretty quickly. It's hard to say what the case is, but that whatever. That very well may be the case. Money-wise, the coaches actually wanted Lynch as well, but Lynch was John Elway's guy. And last thing I got to say before we get out of here is there's a book series out there called Red Rising. It's a young adult series, although it seems more adultish when you read it. If you guys are into like science fiction and like there's a lot of violence in it. But it's about a class system in society. Hundreds of years from now, humanity has populated the other planets, terraformed the other planets to be habitable. And there's a class system, and basically a guy from the bottom class that's based off of colors. The bottom class is a red. He ends up being basically surgically enhanced to be part of a gold class and basically tear down the golds and what's called the society from the inside out. Really good series. There's 5 books. It's by a guy named Pierce Brown, I believe is what his name is. Definitely check it out. Really good series. I have to throw it out there just because I'm reading that series right now for the second time. Really love the series.
Nerd.
Yes, I am. Can't you tell? Star Wars.
All right, Boba Fett. I see you. Angela coming in last minute here. Lance, have fun with the last name. Have a vodka. Is that have a vodka? Is that how you say that? I don't know. I give up. Anyways, guys, thank you all once again for joining the Dove Valley Deep Divers Live podcast. We love you all. We appreciate you. You guys stay safe, take care, and have a great evening and rest of your weekend. We'll see you guys later.
You've been listening to the Huddle Up Podcast. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.